Hi, this is Greg Undo. We'll be starting our Crutchfield recording workshop featuring Steinberg products. So we'll wait a couple minutes to get people logged on. We'll make sure that you guys can hear okay. Hi, this is Greg Undo. We'll be starting our Crutchfield recording workshop. All right, so we'll be going over some of the Steinberg UR interfaces with the Cubase AI software. And if you have questions kind of during the Google Hangout, please feel free to go ahead and kind of type them in the comments field, and we'll go get started in just a couple minutes. We'll see if some people are going to be logging on here. And also, please feel free to kind of introduce yourself. We'll wait a minute or two for people to get logged on. All right, and we'll see some people getting logged on here, and we'll get started in just about one more minute. And once again, if you want to go ahead and feel free to introduce yourself, and if you have any particular questions, we can enter them in the comments field. There's a bit of latency from when we get started to from a bit of latency from when I talk to when you guys hear it. So if I don't respond immediately, you could just go ahead and type in, and we'll try to circle back and get all the questions answered. All right, so let's get started. We'll take a look at some of the audio interfaces here that Steinberg has been doing really well with. So we'll start off with our UR22. So these are all USB 2.0 audio interfaces, and there's 3 of them that are available here at Crutchfield. So if you go to crutchfield.com and search for the Steinberg UR series, there's a UR22, a UR44, and a UR824. These have kind of a lot of the same components, but kind of different levels of inputs and outputs. They'll all come bundled with Cubase AI software, and that's works as for both Mac and PC. This is a MIDI sequencer as well as a digital audio workstation by Steinberg. Steinberg is owned by Yamaha, so we're kind of a software division of Yamaha, and we also now are doing audio interfaces as well, and these are manufactured by Yamaha, and really kind of very high quality but a great price. So anyone that's kind of looking to get started with recording, is a great way to go. So the first one that we have here is the Steinberg UR22. So the UR22 features 2 inputs and 2 outputs. So this connects via USB connection here. So we'll kind of take a look at some of the pictures so you can see. We can have 2 Neutrik combo jacks. So this can accept an XLR cable as well as a 1/4 inch. You're going to have a output volume here. We have a dedicated headphones volume. We have a high Z input, so you could actually connect that directly, a guitar or bass directly to the inputs, and have those be at the proper impedance. It's a rugged metal chassis, and we kind of look at here's a different angle of the front panel. And we can also see that this has MIDI in and out, so you can connect any drum machines or keyboards directly with that. It also has phantom power, meaning you can connect condenser microphones directly with it. So if you wanted to connect a high-quality condenser mic, and we have 2 1/4 inch outputs on the back here. So, and here's our USB connection. So this again comes with Cubase AI software. This features 24-bit 192K converter. So very, very high quality conversion with really excellent Class A mic pre's, which are called D pre's. So really kind of special mic preamp. So this is USB bus powered and works with Mac and PC, 32-bit, 64-bit. And we can see the price here at Crutchfield.com. Moving up to the Steinberg UR44. This is a 6-input, 4-output device. We have 4 mic pre's, 2 dedicated headphone connections, your master volume here. This is, again, 24-bit, 192K. And one of the things that makes this unique is we're going to have line inputs in the back, and we have 4 dedicated outputs plus a main output, dedicated MIDI input and output. But something that's really unique is this has onboard DSP. So if you want to kind of look at, and again, the same kind of rugged metal chassis, and we see this little switch here that's very important that says CC mode. For a lot of people that are working with mobile devices such as their iPad or their iPhone, you could actually just get a camera connection kit and connect this directly to your iOS device. And as you work on that, you'd be able to use this interface for an iPad, your iPhone, desktop, or laptop. And again, it comes with Cubase AI software for which gives you 32 tracks of audio, 48 tracks of MIDI. And this has onboard DSP effects. So this gives you kind of a software mixing console that has real-time effects so you could have reverb, 4 different guitar amps that are all powered by the DSP on the unit itself. So again, a 6-input with 4 of the D pre mic preamps, a 24-bit 192K USB 2 audio interface with 4 outputs. The top of the line interface in the UR range is going to be the UR824. So this will be an 8-input, 8-output analog. We'll have 2 of the mic pre's on the front of the chassis, and we'll have our gain settings here. Again, 2 dedicated independent headphone volume controls. So it's a 19-inch rack mount form factor. And again, it comes with the Cubase AI software. And again, the onboard DSP. And this will also work for iOS devices such as your iPad. So if you wanted to record 24 tracks. Now, what's great about this is we have 8 analog connections, but we have 16 digital connections via ADAT plus word clock. So if you wanted to be able to properly synchronize this. So you can think of this as being if you wanted to record a live band with real drums, or if you wanted to be able to do 24 tracks on your iPad with an app like Steinberg's Cubase. This is a great interface for that. So kind of your choice of different interfaces. So if you wanted a 2-in, 2-output interface, you have the UR22. And again, we have a 6-input, 4-output interface with UR44, and 24-in, 24-out with 8 analog D pre mic preamplifiers in the UR824. Now, what's great about this is it's how well it integrates directly with the Steinberg software. So we'll go ahead and just kind of show you a couple of things that we could do in the Cubase AI software. So with Cubase AI, we can have up to 32 tracks of audio, which is really a phenomenal amount. It works on Mac or PC. It works on 32-bit or 64-bit. So it's kind of one program that can do all of it. So it's going to record 32 tracks of audio. It's going to have real-time effects as well as do all of your MIDI. So we could have MIDI routed to external keyboards like a Yamaha PSR keyboard or to a VST instrument, which is a software instrument. Now, Steinberg, as a company that creates the Cubase AI software, has been doing music software for over 30 years. And they have a really long history of innovation, especially with native-based products, meaning that it takes the computer's processing power to do all the real-time processing. So most of the things that we see that are common in computer production systems were actually kind of pioneered by Steinberg. So we can see different types of tracks here. So we can, again, have 32 audio tracks, and we could have kind of ultra high resolution audio. So kind of beyond 16-bit 44.1 recording, we could actually go up to 32-bit 192K. So it's great. So we could capture every nuance with the particular UR audio interface. So now when we look at our parts here, we have a transport panel. So when we kind of look at a particular transport, we can now see that we're going to have stop, play. So if I wanted to just kind of play this particular file, we have measures going across top here. So we see kind of our tracks going up and down. And we have time going across left and right. Now the beauty of this is how easy it is to actually edit particular parts. So if I wanted to right click or control click on Mac, you can just have access to your toolbox. So if I wanted to cut a particular track, I could cut, or if I wanted to now erase that section. If I wanted to do something as simple as a fade in, you could select the clip and then you get little anchor points. So if you want something to be louder or softer, we could adjust the volume here, or you could pick new start and end times. Now what's great about this is you have 16 levels of undo. So if you wanted to just kind of come right over here, you could actually see your edit history and kind of scroll right back to where you were exactly when you started off. So it makes it kind of really easy to be very kind of musician proof, if you will. Now we have two different types of tracks here. We will have different audio tracks, which can be recording of a voice, a saxophone, electric guitar, violin, and then we have MIDI tracks. Now MIDI tracks don't actually incorporate the sound, but it records kind of that a note was pressed down and then was released. So if I wanted to actually do some further, more detailed editing from my project window, I could just simply double click on a track. So a MIDI track here, this is our piano part, and we'll go ahead and just kind of play this. So we can see kind of the low notes here. And we'll solo the piano voice here. Now if I wanted to move one note, I could just come here and just graphically move different notes, or if I wanted to shorten or lengthen them, I could come here and just right click again to access my tools. If I wanted to erase notes or move notes or make a note louder or softer, I could just come here. So if I want to listen to my edits, and then again, if I wanted to go to my edit history, I could go right back to square one. Now, this is a piano that comes with Cubase. So we give you something that's called an instrument, and Steinberg invented this concept of virtual instruments where we can now come directly here and see. So this is actually coming from a software instrument called Hallian Sonic SE. So the piano that you hear is actually coming from software, so you don't have to worry about tuning pianos or making it, or if you make mistakes, it's very, very easy to fix. Now what's great about this also, if I take my piano part here, I can now have the ability to look at it in a couple different ways. One is I could actually look at it in a score editor. So if you want to listen to just a piano part, and we could print out the score. If you listen to this in context.
How can I see?
Now, if I wanted to kind of change the sound of the lead vocal, we could solo that track and kind of listen to it isolated by itself. So now if I wanted to solo that track.
You stare at the ground.
And we have effects that can actually simulate reverb. So if I wanted to come here, we can add what's called an effects channel track.
Something's wrong.
And let's add
We can't go on.
one, a reverb.
Living a lie.
So now we'll just come right here.
How
And we can go to our
can I
sends. And then what I want to do is send this track to the reverb.
How can I see
And turn this on. And now we're going to have the sound that she's singing in a concert
you
hall.
run and hide
We'll go ahead and
from
re-solo.
the light. Be someone tonight.
So now we're able to kind of simulate kind of different acoustic environments. If I wanted her to sound like she was singing in a cathedral, we're going to sound like it's in a really large concert hall.
Be someone tonight.
And we could listen to that in context now.
You stare at the ground, not a sound. Tell me why something's wrong. We can't go on living a lie.
Now, if I wanted to kind of change the tonal characteristics of her voice, we could apply an EQ. So I'm going to go to my channel setting here, and we could click on an E button. And what this is going to do is to open up kind of the further channel view. So if I wanted to actually record volume changes, for instance, I could come right here and then click on the W, and this would write automation. So if I just kind of move my fader here,
How can I feel you? How can I see
now we'll go ahead and rewind just a little bit, and we'll see all those changes just play back. That's been recorded as automation. And I could apply EQ, so if I wanted to add more mid-range or more high-end to the voice, or low-end, and we have 4 bands of parametric EQ.
So afraid to smile. You think that I change my mind. I can't forget when we first met. Was so
And of course, that can all be completely automated as well. So you can really kind of dial in particular tones if you wanted to run the voice through like a compressor plugin. We have that as well. So if you have audio that's perhaps a little too loud or a little too soft, what you're able to do is actually compress that audio. So at that point, you could regulate the volumes to have kind of more consistent levels so you can kind of hear every word in a vocal. Now, we also see that a lot of people have a difficult time actually being able to come up with initial song ideas. So if I wanted to come here, we have a feature called a chord track, and we can have kind of multiple projects open simultaneously here. And we'll just kind of switch. So let's say if I have a drum loop, and you get all sorts of great drum loops and contents with your Cubase AI, we can start right here. We can start off with a drum loop, and I have a like a Fender Rhodes instrument loaded up here in my Halion Sonic, and we have a feature called a chord track. So if I wanted to come here, I could choose let's add a chord track, and as we do this, I could just kind of try out different chord ideas. So I could say, okay, let's start off with maybe an F chord. We could go to maybe try a B flat chord next, and you could just kind of try out different ideas. And maybe you want to end on a C chord. And if you want to kind of even try out different ideas, so, okay, I want to go F to maybe an E flat. At this point, we could actually just take our different chords here. So kind of very easy, and if I wanted to kind of change the chord voicings, I could switch it for like a guitar or more piano, say more kind of jazzy chord voicings. And if I wanted to actually just kind of take these chords, you could also just kind of drag them directly down, and that will actually kind of create MIDI data that you could at that point select the parts. And if you wanted to go into your score editor, you could see all the notation, or just go directly into your MIDI editor to change different aspects of it. So if I wanted to look at this in my MIDI key editor, we could see all of our different parts just kind of laid down. And if you want to add additional chords, kind of very easy. Now, what's really kind of interesting about the chord track is you can actually take an existing track here and process that through the chord track. So I could tell particular tracks to actually follow the chords. So this way, if I have kind of maybe a rough idea of a sketch of a song, what I'm able to do is to actually change kind of the song formation directly based on the events right here. So let's go ahead and listen to this piece. So I could enter in chord data. So I can say we want to start off with the key of G, and you can see kind of all the different MIDI parts change. And maybe we want to go to a different chord. And we can add 2 more chords here. And you can place the chords anywhere we want. And as we do this, all the chords will just kind of change. So if I wanted to move this back to a G chord, we can see all these notes just shift. And you could try out different ideas. So very easy if you kind of just are looking for a way to start off with a new piece of music. If you have even just kind of a rough sketch, the chord track is a really great tool for initially kind of coming up with ideas. And even if you don't understand traditional music theory, you can see that you can just kind of enter the chords in and listen to it and see if that makes sense musically. So it's a great way for if you're kind of writing a song or just coming out with different ideas that are a little bit fresh. It's very easy to kind of come up with those different ideas and have it automatically correlate to your different chords and have the MIDI data change accordingly. Now, a lot of people use Cubase AI with the audio interfaces for doing kind of large multi-track recordings. So if I wanted to come here, we could open up a different project. Let's say we'll have just a bit of a jazz project. And here I could have each of the different tracks kind of broken out like in a multi-track, so I could listen to just a kick drum, the snare. We're hearing kind of rim shots now. Hi-hat. Toms. Different floor toms, overhead drum mics. Or the bass part. Saxophone. And say piano. you want to add like even kind of percussion. Now I have an effects sense set up here, so if I wanted to kind of take the saxophone, you can listen to it very dry. But if we wanted to actually have it sound like someone was playing in a concert hall, we could bring in that saxophone. This is called Ascend because we blend the original dry signal with the reverb in varying degrees. So again, if I wanted to do some editing of my parts, I could select all the parts here and say, okay, I want these to start at a different point in the song, or I want these to end at different points. Or if I wanted to actually just kind of cut out different parts, again, I could right mouse click, and at this point we could just choose to cut parts. We can erase parts. If I wanted to mute parts, we could click on it with the X tool. If I wanted to kind of take different saxophone parts here, erase them, and say I really like this part and I want this to be repeated, you could just hold down your Alt key and just kind of actually construct different ideas. Now, you may want to see it a little more detail. So if you could actually zoom in down to the sample level. So if you wanted to actually just kind of drop zoom, we can now, from our master timeline at the top, if we wanted to just kind of drop down, we could actually go down to the sample level to do all of your editing. So if one note was you want it to be a little louder or softer, we can also just cut that note at this point, select it, make it really loud. So if we want to listen to this. If I wanted that last phrase to fade out, I could select this and go to my upper right hand handle and just do kind of a fade out. So we listen to the saxophone now. Or if I wanted this to actually do a fade in, conversely, I could just take my upper left hand corner handle and do a fade in. And if I don't like any of the edits that I've made, I can come right here and simply kind of scroll through all of my edits through my edit history. And again, you can just come right there. So it's very easy to kind of fix mistakes that you may have imposed during the edit process. Now, when a lot of people think of a traditional studio, one of the images that comes to mind is going to be the mixing console. So one of the things that we want to do is to actually create a very comprehensive mixer. And we could access this by going to your device menu, and then at this point, go to the mix console. So here we could see all of our available tracks in our project. Now, if I didn't want to see particular tracks, I could actually just hide these tracks from view. So if I wanted to concentrate just on particular tracks, we can hide them from view directly here. And also we have our faders. So just like what we saw when we were editing the vocal before, we can come here and we could see all the different channels with our faders. So as I come here, we could go to our saxophone. I want that softer. Or if I want to pan it, so it goes in the right speaker, or just in the left speaker. So now if I wanted to look at my console here, this will kind of mimic a large format analog console in a lot of ways. We will have our routing here. So when we have our audio interfaces, like I currently have the UR44 connected, so that gives me the 6 inputs and 4 outputs. We can come right here to the device menu and go to your VST connections. And then we have our inputs and outputs tab. So if I wanted to define my inputs of my audio interface, we can come directly here. So if I have, let's say, I want to choose my saxophone input, and we wanted this to come from input 3 of our audio interface. Now, one of the things that we had mentioned was that the onboard interface with UR44 and UR824 have onboard DSP. So if I go to my mix console here, we can actually look at different channel types, and we could include something called input channels. So as soon as I come here, we could go to our saxophone part, and I'll go to my racks, and we want to incorporate something called hardware. And this is totally unique to the Steinberg hardware and software solutions. So if we go to my hardware tab, we now have the ability of being able to invert the input phase of the channel. We also have kind of a high pass filter, and we can have different effects. So we could choose different guitar amplifiers. So what's kind of cool about this is you have modeled guitar amps, and these can come, there's 4 different guitar amplifiers, and kind of the processing power for all these amplifiers comes from the onboard DSP of the unit itself. So one of the issues that a lot of people run into is kind of latency imposed by many software plugins. So if someone is trying to record a voice or a guitar solo, and they're using traditional software-based plugins, that could be a little bit of a delay. That could be really, that could throw off many different musicians. But here we could actually have these with imperceptible latency. So if you wanted to have your different input channels, we can now come here and you could choose 4 different guitar amps, but also a channel strip. So if you wanted to look at your channel strip, this is kind of a combination EQ as well as compression. And the beauty of this is we could actually come here and kind of morph between kind of traditional settings. So if I want to come here, there's different presets, but there's also a lot of kind of famed engineer presets here as well. But what's kind of interesting is it can kind of take the best elements of different types of compression. If you don't quite understand what all is going on with that, it could actually kind of morph between kind of optimized presets with this. So what's kind of really interesting about this is you have kind of 2 different ways of incorporating this into the signal flow. And it could be a little subtle to see initially, but we see this little line here. So if I wanted no guitar amps or no actual the morphing channel strip, I could just put my line here, and that kind of bypasses kind of like an electronic signal flow chart. And if I wanted to move this to the center position, we can now, as we record on the input channel, we can monitor with these changes, but it doesn't apply the different effects like the guitar amps or the morphing channel strip. But if I did want to apply those, so that if I was talking and it was very soft and very loud and very soft and very loud, and I wanted to apply compression on the input channel, all I would need to do is to come right here and move this line down here. Now the signal gets recorded directly through the different input channels here. So as we do that, I could have no effects processing. I can monitor in the center position with the effects processing, or I could print with the 5 different effects here. Now also, Yamaha has been kind of a world-class developer of DSP algorithms, especially for reverbs. So included is going to be the RevX reverb. So we could monitor through this reverb, and this is something that a lot of singers always kind of ask for. So as they're tracking, they wanted to be able to sing with reverb. Now, often if you're kind of doing this in a software-based studio or digital audio workstation, that will impose a certain amount of latency. And that delay could throw off the singer and often really affects their pitch. So they often could sing out of tune because they're singing to a little bit of a delay. So with this, we could actually monitor with the effects and have no perceptible latency. So it's kind of like going through a digital mixer, which you really don't have that experience in traditional music recording programs where you have zero latency. So the UR44 and UR824 have these onboard DSP so that we could take advantage of it and kind of solve a lot of the problems. Now, as we work with this, you may go, okay, I'd love to have those on the input channels, but can I use those same effects? Like I really wanted to use that guitar amp on a particular channel. We can come here and just load up different insert effects. So I could now come here to my distortion and say, okay, I want the crunch guitar amp here. And now I could use these also as software-based effects. And I wanted to have the morphing channel strip here. And for my effects, I wanted to have kind of the great, onboard effects of the Yamaha reverb. So I can come here, and instead of using just my RoomWorks, I could right-click, and let's go ahead and just, I'll hold down my Shift and Alt key. And at this point, we'll go to our reverb, and then we'll say we wanted a kind of a concert hall sound for this, and now it's going to add those concert hall sound effects directly to all of the particular channels there. So we could do that as inserts, or most people would actually just kind of do it as sends. So if I wanted to come right here, we could say let's go, and we'll just select a number of different channels, and then we'll right click again, and now I wanted to take one send effect. So we're going to add effects channel, send to 4. And then at this point we could just say, okay, as we do this, we can now just have all these different effects. So now I could have kind of my onboard reverb, whether it's being used as a send or an insert effect. So what's great about this is you have this flexibility of having a kind of imperceptible latency with the effects as you're monitoring with them. In addition to that, you have the same processing power that you could use anywhere within your software-based studio as well. Now, what gets really interesting is as we wanted to kind of build a mix, we can come over here and automate, again, every single aspect. So if I wanted to come here and let's say to my guitar amp, as I'm playing back my project here, let me just set these to no effect real quick. So even if I wanted to automate the parameters, of a guitar amp, I could come here, click on the W and R, and as I rewind, all those parameters. So I'll just automate this right here, then we'll jump back. So everything can be completely automated. So I can automate not only the volume control of each source. So if I could see the name of all my tracks here. So if I wanted more bass, if I wanted to solo the bass, solo a particular track, or mute. You can listen to it without the saxophone, we can mute that. And I could really tweak every single sound. And to bring out the congas there. So it gets to be a very comprehensive digital mixing system. So at this point, we can have a tremendous amount of control to really kind of fine tune every single aspect. And if you needed to go back and touch up automation, it's very simple to do as well. So you could just simply grab the fader again, or you could graphically edit it as well. Now, once we have all these different components actually put into the software, and I have the mix set up exactly as I want, and everything's kind of perfectly dialed in, I have all of my MIDI information. Let's say I'm using all my virtual instruments like the Halion Sonic SE. I have my effects like the RevX Reverb or the Roomworks SE. So I can have these different effects, and if I wanted to actually deliver this file to someone, what we're able to do is we could come here and we could say, let's do an export audio mix down. And as we select this, we can now take my files here, and I could take all 32 tracks of my audio, all 48 tracks with all of my automation, all of my effects, my reverbs, my compressors, delays, chorusing, flanging, all the edits applied, and I can now come here and do a mix down file. So we'll come right over here and we can say we want to call this jazz mix. At this point, we could choose what sample rate that we want it to be in, what bit depth. So if I want it to be 8-bit, 16-bit, 24-bit, or 32-bit float. So if we're going to do like for a CD, I may want to do a 16-bit 44.1. And then you could just simply choose a path. So let's say we want to put this to the desktop. And we'll also put this directly into our audio track. So this can take all of the different elements that we've seen in this project. So it's about a 10-minute project. It's going to take all the different effects, all the processing, and then it's going to mix it down for us. So at this point, we'll just wait a couple minutes here. So if we kind of think of everything that we've seen kind of really ultra high resolution capture devices. So if you wanted to get to the point where you needed to have a really high resolution 24-bit 192K for recording, or we have a lot of people actually just using them for audiophile playback because the converters are studio grade with really phenomenal mic preamps. So you kind of capture all the essential subtleties that are with an audiophile recording on the way in, but they also play back at the full resolution. But we're able to have the UR22 with 2 ins and 2 outs, the UR44 with the 6 inputs, 4 outputs with the onboard DSP, and works for your iPad, works for, it's class compliant, so your iPad, iOS device, it can work with your desktop, your notebook, and UR824 if you needed to capture 24 tracks live into an iPad in a program like Cubase. So all with 24-bit 192K converters. The UR22, UR44 also have MIDI. And now that we take a listen to this, we're almost done with our export. We're able to now just come right over here. And we'll just have this, our final mixdown file. And it's now being incorporated directly into our project. We'll scroll down. It's going to create the WAV files, and here's our file, and we could burn a CD directly from this in iTunes or Windows Media Player or any CD program, even WaveLab Elements, which is our mastering solution. So we can kind of see all these different elements and how the hardware and software truly interact. Now, what's great about this is we have a new partner with Crutchfield. So we're going to have this, but there's a Crutchfield special offer code. So if you see this Google Hangout, we can, if you enter the code 3A755, once again, 3A755, there's a 5% discount on the Steinberg products at crutchfield.com through October 15th of this year. So once again, if you think of all the different elements that you've seen here, whether you want to have the high resolution audio capture, to have the flexibility of multiple levels of undo, very simple to do your editing with kind of right clicking, having comprehensive creative controls like with the chord track, being able to really enhance the sound with reverb and EQ to really kind of dial in your multi-track recording. And with the cost of the interfaces, it's really easy for someone just to kind of get started at, whether you're a seasoned professional or you're just kind of starting off for your first time. There's one of those interfaces for you. And again, if you take advantage of the special Crutchfield code here, once again, the Crutchfield special offer code, if you enter it in, you can go to crutchfield.com or call your Crutchfield sales associate at 3A755. They'll give you an extra 5% discount on already really phenomenal value of hardware and software tools. So take advantage of the special discount here with Crutchfield. And if you have any questions, please feel free to either contact your Crutchfield sales associate or feel free to leave comments directly in the field on the Google Hangout. We hope you enjoyed this. Thank you very much.